Could I be wearing more clothes? Today on the Manspace. Welcome to the Manspace podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter. Welcome, Spaceman. Matt and Mike have no idea what I just referenced.
I do. Are you kidding me?
Well, you gave no look.
I have
what was
no
I
idea.
referencing, Mike?
Well, apparently anything I do comes off super over amplified. So I was like, maybe I should just sit quietly. Dude, it was from Friends.
Yeah.
The episode, it's titled "The One Where No One's Ready."
Oh, that's beyond me. I just know Chandler walks, or not Chandler. Joey walks in wearing putting on all of Chandler's clothes, and then gives
Could I
a Chandler
be wearing any more clothes?
Yeah, a Chandler sarcastic line.
Yeah, and I'm going commando, and then he starts doing lunges.
I do remember that. Friends. I tried watching that show again. I didn't like it as much.
I could never do it just because of Ross.
Oh,
I
yeah?
hate that guy. Dude, he's right up there with Ryan Reynolds for me.
Wow.
It's going to be real awkward when I finally get Ryan on the show.
Well, he's not going to come now. I mean,
he's going to come on just to win Matt over. That's how much he cares about his fans. He wants every single one of you.
Have you heard about the whole Martha Stewart thing with him?
No, he
with
can't
Ryan
compete
Reynolds?
with Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, apparently they're neighbors.
Oh,
of
course
and
they are.
She came out and said he's not actually that funny.
Oh,
yes. And
dude, you want to be in Martha Stewart's camp? Come on.
His response was something about, I would try to argue, but I've done that before, and she's remarkably spry after about a mile.
Oh, Ryan.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's fine. I saw that they just sold a minority stake in their soccer club in order to buy the brewery in Wrexham. They're just going to transform that town single-handedly. Just get on board, Matt.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were trying to buy the brewery.
Yep.
So what about Ryan Gosling?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no problem with him.
Okay.
He's not an anti-Ryanite.
No.
Well, I wasn't sure.
You're an anti-dentite. Dude, I have some clients who are like, no, I've never seen Seinfeld. And some who are like, I tried watching it. I didn't see why it was funny. I was like, oh, you shut your mouth. I was very upset by that. So I guess because we all have, some of us have limited time. Mike could be on here for hours.
Maybe Mike just stay on afterwards and
just
give the episode debrief.
Sure to bring
that'd be
the
good.
Listeners in.
The patron saint would freaking love it.
He probably would. I don't know that anyone else would. Everyone else would be like, what, just this guy?
Just see how many sarcastic statements you can make and how long you can go, and then just end.
Yeah.
Just cut it off.
Mike, tell us what this thing is and why I was sarcastic at the beginning.
So, after just watching some interactions last night at this activity I was at with a bunch of adults and youth, it just got me thinking of the role of humor within a relationship. All of us, we all love humor. We think it's an important thing. We use it in the therapy that we do.
I use it a ton, maybe too much.
And we grew up, Rob, in a house where we actually, I remember we would, with pride, describe ourselves as sarcastic. And so it just kind of got me curious about the benefits of humor within a relationship. And when does that line get crossed? Or when are we just being too sensitive?
So like, and to clarify, you're saying humor
Jeez.
/ sarcasm, or when does humor become sarcasm or becomes cutting?
A little bit of both. Like, I don't think humor is inappropriate. But I know over the years I have tried to shift the target of my humor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm much more self-deprecating than I used to be, because I'm the only safe target to me. Um, so yeah, but that's just me, right? Like I also recognize that it could be I'm slightly overreacting to it, or I'm, just being overly cautious. Like I said, maybe I'm being too sensitive to the impact this has on other people.
This is interesting. As you're saying this, I started thinking, I've heard lots of quotes about sarcasm. My mother-in-law was one who was very sarcastic, but she decided it was too hurtful to people, so she just stopped altogether. Which it felt like her humor stopped altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was looking up quotes, and there was one from Oscar Wilde that said,
Yep.
sarcasm is the lowest form of wit, but the highest form of intelligence. It
Mm-hmm.
just cracks me up. But uh, then there's some here like this one from whoever Dana Perino is. Sarcasm is like cheap wine. It leaves a terrible aftertaste. But this person says sarcasm helps me overcome the harshness of the reality we live, eases the pain of scars, and makes people smile. That's Mahmoud Darwish. Probably people know who that is. Here's one by Gordon B. Hinckley. I'm suggesting that as we go through life, we accentuate the positives. I'm asking you to look for a little deeper for the good, that we still see the voices of insult and sarcasm, that we more generously compliment and endorse virtue and effort. So stop sarcasm.
Stop the
I
sarcasm.
Yeah, I hear these things back and forth. It's like I that's like sarcasm is bad, and I think it's interesting because I don't know if sarcasm itself is bad. Maybe it generates cynicism. I love humor. I use it almost too much in sessions. I did have a couple at the end of therapy. They'd done well, and then they said something like, "Hey, you should be a stand-up comedian." And I felt like, is that what you're taking from the therapy we just did for weeks on end? Like, I felt like, well,
I wonder if you could take sarcasm and like lay it over like the 4 types of humor, because I'm curious where you feel like it would land, and if it can be a form of all 4 of these, and then that maybe that determines how it is experienced, if that makes sense.
we'll lay him out.
So,
So yeah, go ahead.
well, so real quick, from goodtherapy.org,
Yeah.
Which you
real
so you
official.
know it's good.
This is how they define sarcasm. Because I am super curious, Matt, about what you just said about how it lays over kind of the 4 types, if it does. But that also means, I think, starting from a place of a shared kind of definition of sarcasm, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sarcasm, on the other hand, derives from the Greek word that means tearing of the flesh.
Ouch.
Sarcasm is hostility disguised as humor. That's why when someone says something sarcastic to you, you don't feel good. Sarcasm is unsettling. If you challenge it, the person can say, "What? I was just kidding." But it doesn't feel like kidding. It feels like veiled criticism, because
It's
that's
like passive
exactly what it
aggressive
is.
humor.
That's kind of their, like, ultimately, that's what they boil down to. Like, just so you guys know, this is another form of passive aggressiveness. In that, they're making what seems like a benign comment, but the underlying meaning of it is you irritate me, or that behavior is dumb, or something. So that's kind of how they defined it.
Well, that doesn't
That
overlay
real
on
sound,
any of
right?
these.
Yeah, guess
No,
we
it
should
does
stop
actually
using
lay
that.
over on one of these, but let's see if maybe you could apply it. So, affiliative humor. This involves telling jokes about things that everyone might find funny. The goal is to use humor to bring people together to find humor in everyday life. This is kind of like Seinfeld humor.
Mm-hmm.
This book I just read that talked about these types. It linked him to that. And then aggressive humor. This involves put downs or insults targeted towards individuals. This is the humor that is used by more aggressive comedians, the put down artists such as Don Rickles or the late Joan Rivers. When it is intended to threaten or psychologically harm others, it is the type of humor used by bullies. So, like passive aggressive, I guess would fit in that. There's self enhancing humor. This is being able to laugh at yourself, such as making a joke when someone or when something bad has happened to you, trying to find the humor in everyday situations and making yourself the target of the humor in a good natured way. It is related to healthy coping and stress. Jon Stewart from The Daily Show often uses self enhancing humor.
Yeah.
Like by making statements like, maybe I just don't understand, or I'm not the brightest guy. Self-defeating humor, putting yourself down in an aggressive or poor me fashion is called self-defeating humor. The late comedian Rodney Dangerfield would be an example of this. I don't get no respect. I was an ugly baby. Psychologically, this can be an unhealthy form of humor and is sometimes used by targets or bullies to try to avoid attacks. Like, I'll make the joke first so you don't make fun of me. Well,
That's interesting because I don't know if, I mean, I guess you can put sarcasm in a couple of those places, but sometimes I'll use sarcasm against myself. And so maybe that's the self-defeating, but I view it more in the line of self-enhancing, which I've never really phrased it that way, but yes, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, so that's the interesting part, because there are times where I'm making the joke because I can see that's where the joke is. And because, like, sure, if other people want to laugh along, like, I think what just happened, this mistake that I just made is funny. So why don't we all laugh? I'll point it out so you guys can laugh with me. But then there's also been times where I make the joke because my assumption is, well, everyone's already thinking it. So if I make the joke, I'm the one controlling it. They don't get a laugh at me.
Yeah, that'd
I'm
be the
controlling
self-defeating kind of thing.
Right. And that's the thing, like the thing here, the two that, and that's where I'm just not sure, like, I don't know. For me, I think over the years, it's hard to see sarcasm as not negative. And so the two parts that it lines up to me are the self-defeating and the aggressive.
Yeah.
Where the target is the goal is not to bring people together. Or maybe with the aggressive, it is, but it's at the expense of. Yes, I'm going to bring people together at the expense of you.
But is it possible to be sarcastic without it being targeted at a person?
That's what.
Like, for example, being sarcastic about the situation so that we all kind of laugh like, okay, yeah, there's some humor in this. But it is designed to make fun of, like, this is freaking dumb and in a sarcastic way. Like the Joey thing from the beginning, could I be wearing any more clothes, is clearly targeted at Chandler.
Right.
And I don't have like an example off the top of my head, but there's lots of times where, at least in my mind, admittedly, I am not the best at this. I know sometimes I go too far because I think, hey, we're all friends and we're all laughing. Make fun of me too, and I'll make fun of you, and it's okay because we all like each other. And then I freaking hurt people. And
well, where would you put like impersonations? Because there's like, well, and I think it was actually Bill Burr that said, like, on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, saying, like, comedians are actually just really pissed off people. And so like the joke involves exactly what you're saying, Mike, with your definition of sarcasm, where it's like, no, I'm really actually a bit annoyed by you or this situation, and I'm making a joke out of it, potentially to cope, right? But yeah, when does it cross a line? Like I guess when you get into like a roast, like
Yeah, but even then,
no, I know, like for some people it just doesn't ever cross a line, but also for
Well,
some
but that's
people it's really like even the idea of a roast crosses a line.
yeah.
I guess that's the thing I'm curious about. Like some of the jokes from roasts, I think, yeah, the only reason they can make that is because they qualified it by saying, well, it's a roast.
Yeah.
But
And I
it's
think,
freaking
sure,
mean sometimes.
if you made that comment during any regular stand-up routine, nobody would find it funny. They would find it offensive. But because you're roasting him and it's with the preface of a roast, okay, we're okay with it. It's kind of what you refer to as friends, like, and I think guys, we're probably a little more susceptible to this than women are, where like I had friends who would tease me and make fun of me, and I knew that there wasn't right, that they still liked me, they still cared about me. Every once in a while, sure, it would hurt, but for the most part, I was like, yeah, but it's like, like I go back to high school for this. Like I'm like, yeah, but it's Jeremy and Mark, it's fine, and we do this to each other. Like I teased them too, right? And so I think, yeah, there are things that we look at and say, yeah, this is just kind of the normal dynamic that exists.
Yeah, but
But
I think
should it?
well, that's what I think what's hard is because I genuinely never want to make someone feel bad when I'm making jokes. I often prefer, if I can, to make fun of myself first because it's, um, well, I like attention. So if I can get you to look at me, then great. And then I'll make fun of myself and keep you looking at me. And it's funny because I genuinely don't ever want to make a joke at someone's expense, but I know I do. And I think maybe my line has blurred to me that it's like, well, no, making a joke at somebody's expense would be mean. That's a way over here. I'm just making this joke. And for them to like, no, that was freaking mean. It's like, oh, I think I've
So
lost my ability to read that.
can I reference this article one more time? I mean,
thought you
I'm
were about to
going
reference
to.
the time I made fun of you and went too far, but go for it.
No, just the article.
Patron Saint's probably having a field day with it. He's like, I can list off 17 times just in the last episode, Rob. Anyway, go ahead. I just made fun of Patron Saint. What's wrong with me?
So in here, trying to find it real quick. What? No. Sarcasm. They like the fortitude. If you're dealing with someone who is predictably sarcastic, remember that sarcasm. Oh, this is it. Sarcasm becomes a habit. As such, over time, it can seem untethered to the underlying psychological framework that produces it. As a result, a sarcastic person is likely to refute any suggestion from you that sarcasm might be hostile and cowardly.
I think I just became untethered from the first sentence. What was the
And cowardly.
Basically,
no,
Cowardly.
like what it's saying,
Basically,
it can
the
become
point-
untethered from the person who's using the sarcasm.
yeah, like
Or-
if I'm using it, I may not realize, like Rob just said, right?
okay.
Like
I'm
the
using it
line,
so
he
much.
goes, sometimes the line has gotten blurred for me.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the point they're making is like, I might use it so often that I no longer recognize that the reason I'm making the comment I'm making is because Mike doing this to his microphone is kind of irritating me. And so I'm going to make a smart mouth comment about it, which no, I'm using that as an example because neither of you did.
Oh, I was like, did I do that
no,
last time?
No, no, it was just the easiest thing. Like I could think of something that I was unaware of, right, causing an issue.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You guys were like, oh, I can really hear that. You didn't make fun of me or anything. You just like, I think one of you commented on it. Like I didn't think there was anything.
Mike,
But-
quit rubbing your mic.
Right. But I think, yeah, if I may not realize that that's irritating me and that my sarcastic comment is a result of that irritation, I might just view it as, well, this is where the joke is.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the point I think that you were trying to make. And that's the point the article makes is if you use it often enough, you're likely to lose track of like
Your
where
own
the
feelings
line.
about situations.
Yeah.
I don't. Here's where I want to move into the idea of how this affects relationships, and not just sarcasm, but just humor in general. Because I think it's like for the way my brain works, humor is so valuable that if I can get myself to laugh at something, like my optimism goes way up, and my ability to think more creatively goes exponentially faster than if I'm not seeing humor in something. So I have to see humor. And not everyone's brain works like mine. That's just how mine works. And I've always had this thought of like, I'm worried that I use, like maybe I'm making jokes at other people's expense too often, and I don't even know I'm doing it anymore. I wonder though, because like the idea of Bill Burr saying, comedians are just pissed off people. I think I'm not that. My motivation is never like, oh, everyone's so stupid.
I think he was just speaking for himself, but trying to apply
Well,
that to everybody.
Well, sure.
Well, but you can hear it like
there's
Sebastian
lots of
Maniscalco.
You can hear it in some, but I also thought of like James Acaster, who's a British comedian, and even Steve Harvey. I think no, they're not those. I would not describe either of those people as pissed off people.
Yeah,
no,
like,
but
I think
even
Steve Harvey is actually full of hope and whatever.
But even Jerry Seinfeld, who they reference in Matt in the first category, I think even
he sounds irritated. Yeah,
he's all the time. What's the deal with this stupid thing? What's this dumb thing we all do?
Yeah,
right. And we all laugh because like, yeah, but it's like, well, that's the sarcasm. It's like it's not directed at anybody.
Yeah,
but it is a sarcastic like, oh, look how dumb we all are.
Yeah, it unites everybody around some like neutral experience. Right. Yeah, that we can relate to versus like targeting.
Yeah, and he makes you look at it in a different way.
Right, but even then I think, no, but it is directed at somebody. It's just directed at a lot of somebody's.
That's true. Sure.
But
and it's only funny if I agree with Jerry Seinfeld. If I don't think it's stupid, then he just insulted me.
Right. Although the way he phrases it is sneaky because he's like, what's the deal? It's never like, this is dumb.
Right. Did you guys see that meme of the Yankees fan stealing the ball out of the mitt and it's like, shut up, you old bag.
That's one of my favorite scenes in that show. Shut up, you old bag.
Dude, I can't tell you how irritated I was at those two fans, though.
Did you see this? There's a podcast where Rob Gronkowski said that was his friend in college, and he's like, yeah, and he's like, good for him, man, for taking the moment when he had the moment. And he's like, no, that wasn't cool, but like he took the moment, like. Oh man!
Someone compared him to if you look at the slow mo, it looks like some little like starving kid tearing open a Twinkie wrapper.
So that's my issue. My issue wasn't that they did it. Like I think lots of fans get excited and they're like, I want this ball kind of thing. It's listening to them talk about why they did it after
because it was over the fence.
He didn't want the ball
because we are patrolling this area.
Yeah. And
if this can help our team, we will help our team. And I think, hey, idiots, it didn't help your team. They got the out. And they'll always get the out when it's that obvious, you idiots.
Well, he was going to get the out
still
anyway.
Feel
he caught the ball.
That's aggressive.
I know.
Humor.
Like it was so clearly caught. I thought, yeah.
Yeah, what is he hoping?
I think they were hoping for the infield double.
Yeah, maybe, and I guess. But whatever, it cracks. Someone compared him to the Cubs kid, the one who...
that one to me was just
like,
legitimate.
how come he's being praised? Like the Cubs guy robbed it from his own team and unintentionally.
Yeah.
Right. But he was just trying to get the home run ball.
Yeah, he just wanted the ball. Like, anyway.
Dude, what year was that was like the nut shot?
The nut shot?
Remember, it was like a Nationals game. I can't remember who they were playing. Maybe the Phillies and the Nationals?
I don't remember this. What?
There's this guy standing out in left field, just like sitting there drinking a beer, and someone hits a homer, and he's like,
I gotta look that up.
How did you not see that coming?
Because he was drinking his beer.
He's not there for the game. He's there for the beer, the really expensive beer.
The really expensive beer.
So, if we transition this over, like I think, let's assume for a second that that we're not talking about sarcasm, like making fun of your spouse. like, um, like I had a couple recently where, I mean, the woman is in a lot of emotional pain, and I probably made 15 jokes during that session just to keep her like laughing, and then I'd jump right back into the pain again, and I'd emphasize the pain, and then I'd make a joke about something and go right back in over and over again. And here's a dumb example. While I always like to have TV on in the background while I'm doing like my paperwork, and lately it's been Psych because that's one of the best shows to watch. I can't watch it straight.
I love Psych.
Yeah.
If I watch it straight, I'm like, this is getting boring. But when it's in the background, I'm like, I can watch this all day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I watch him, and he's like never serious. In fact, he's not that great of an actor. The
James Roday.
Sean, yeah.
Yeah.
So that when he does serious stuff, it's like, oh, go back to the jokes. This is real awkward for everybody in the room. And you need to stop. And I think, is it bad? Is it good? Like, it's like, thank goodness we have humor so that we can diffuse this situation. Like, I don't know. What do you guys feel like? Yes, humor I mean, obviously humor in relationships, but is there a line there besides throwing out the idea of don't be mean to your spouse, don't use them as the butt of your joke? But is there a place that's like, this is not a time or place for humor, or this is why it would be detrimental? Because to me, I'm like, it's only upsides, baby.
Well, there's the old phrase, read the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, like, here's the thing, Rob, you are a gifted comedian, for lack of I don't know how else to describe it.
End the episode there.
And we're done.
It's done.
No, like, and so I think, no, you know how to find the balance of,
not always.
Let me make this joke to ease the tension a little bit so that I can then bring you back in.
Sure.
That's a hard skill to develop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it comes naturally to most people. And so I think there is a high risk of, if I come in using humor, even if I'm not making fun of if I'm not making fun of anybody, I'm just using humor to try to bring levity to the situation, I run a decent risk of coming off as dismissive to whatever emotion my spouse is feeling, because I'm not giving it its space. I'm just coming in and making it go away. So at worst case, I'm dismissive. At best case, I just can't manage her discomfort, and I have to ease it. Right? Like, that's when it's not used. So I do think, yeah, you got to be able to read the situation.
Yeah.
And you got to know how to weave those two things. And sometimes, like, with Jenner, there have been times where I've done something and I'll do like it shows up in movies all the time. Too soon. Right? Because I recognize, like, okay, she's not there yet. Like, she's not in a place where she can hear this and find the humor in it.
Despite your glowing compliment, I think there are tons of times when I make a joke, and I give all my clients a heads up in the first session. Sometimes I will make a joke. I usually do it intentionally, therapeutically, to go back and forth. And I said, sometimes I just can't resist the joke. So if I've gone too far at the wrong time, just say that was the wrong time. And I'm happy to say, yeah, I apologize for that. I don't take it personally if they say that was the wrong time. And that's happened with Becky a number of times where it's like, sorry, refocus.
Mm-hmm.
I think it matters a lot that when we use humor, it's not humor. And this is where I think the line is for sarcasm. It's like, to me, humor should always be enhancing to everybody in the room. Even if it's like, let's say, people start making fun of me and we're all laughing, and the enhancing part could be, I do feel like it feels like this is a safe place where it feels like I feel like we can make fun and I'm still okay. You guys all still like me. like even that kind of thing. I'm not saying make fun of your friends, but I'm saying as long as humor is enhancing, then I think generally it is until you start getting at like maybe it's the motivation. If my motivation was to make you look dumb, then it's not funny anymore. Like someone's going to be hurt by that. That sucks. If the motivation is to change your thinking, and that's half the time when I use humor, it's to like change thinking of like see this in a different way. This is not the only reality that exists. Like I was thinking that reality thing. Sorry, this is gonna be a slight tangent probably, but you remember that I told you guys about that frequency thing. I think I even did it with you guys, where it's like you can play a certain frequency, and at some point, younger kids can hear the high ones, and adults can't. Like it's fascinating to me to think that there are two different realities happening in that moment. In my reality, there is no sound happening. In my kid's reality, it's a painful sound happening. And I think that's like true of this idea of like I want humor to say, could there be a different way to look at this reality? Like today, for people, I mean, this will come out next week, but today's the day after Election Day. And I've had clients come into my office who have said, it's going to be great. We got a new president. And so things are going to go really well now. And the next session was, I'm afraid for my future. And in both those situations, I'm like, yeah, there's different ways of looking at this. And usually humor is the easiest way because it allows you into the space without committing to that space. It's like, I can laugh at it. It's like, but it's a joke. So I don't have to go all the way into that. Instead of saying this is the reality. And I think that's where it's advantageous in relationships. We've talked before about Don Arterburn, his code word to his wife that they need to take a break from their fight is always, so I guess a blowjob's out of the question. Because it's just enough to say, hey, we gotta break out of this. And that's what I think that's where humor is really advantageous to say, hey, what if you saw this in a different way? Then maybe it doesn't seem so harsh or so threatening or so scary or so defined even. Like so many people I'm working with, I use reframing so much to say there could be a different way to look at this. And humor is my sneaky way. Because they won't always fight me on that. If I throw the joke out and they like it, then I've just opened up the avenue to a different way of looking at it. I don't know what else to say about that. Did I just end the episode or something?
Well, no, that like I'm curious, Matt, because
I can't remember the question.
I don't know if there was a question in that. I guess it was. The original question was like, what is the place for humor in relationships?
Yeah.
Oh,
I just wanted to hear what you had to say on it.
Well, I guess the way that you were answering it, Rob, maybe I had some thoughts on that. I don't know if it was you were answering that question, but no, I think if people, I think it's more about like your range, maybe. Like I think for some couples, it's going to be like we only go so deep, or we only get so kind of close to the edge with humor, right? But whatever your range is as a couple, I think when you have like a big mismatch, it sucks. But because somebody will feel like they can't be themselves, and somebody will feel like they're always getting their feelings hurt by their partner, right? But I think like if you've got the ability to use humor to kind of like we talked about, I think a long time ago, like the original purpose of the court jester was to go in, make fun, and poke at the king a little bit and see like how much can he tolerate. And everybody that had to have difficult conversations with him were kind of gauging that, like, oh, okay, well, maybe we can bring this up, right? And so I think it does serve the purpose, like you're saying, of kind of testing the ground. I think if you can't go further than that when the door is open, then I think that is a problem. Like if it's always, just like the only type of conversation we can have about difficult things is humor, right? Then yeah, you're probably not going to have a very deep relationship. I think that, and I think sometimes, like I'm just thinking of, I think it was a Chris Farley interview. And you could argue with comedians like Chris Farley, Drew Carey, other people, like they said, like, there's massive insecurity, and so I'm really uncomfortable, and humor like helps me to kind of keep it light, keep the spotlight off of me, right, or on me in a way that's like I'm kind of controlling, like we said, controlling the conversation. Like when you've and probably some of these people were like extremely high and drunk on these interviews too, so there's that part of it. But those interviews where like a comedian just won't like shut up, and the host is like just trying to like, oh, okay, so like they just keep getting caught up in the humor and looking like an idiot. Like I think in a couple relationship, if it's just like, tough conversations just keep going like that, then yeah, I think that's when it kind of crosses the line. It's like, dude, I'm just trying to like have a serious conversation with you. Can we put the jokes aside for a second? But if you have that range, I think that can be a huge asset, because it's like something you bond over, something that you like. I can't remember if we talked about inside jokes a long time ago, but like the role of like slang and inside jokes and humor, where it makes your relationship kind of special in some ways. You have those moments where you had a funny moment, you laughed about it together, or you observed something in a specific way, and it's kind of yours. I think it adds to intimacy in a way, right? Like we've got this specialness to our relationship.
I think that's what's so key in humor. When Matt, when you're saying range, I feel like, yeah, the motivation behind it. Like if you're using it as a way out of discomfort, so that I can just get out of this, that's not good. If you're using it as a way to diffuse sometimes and say, okay, now let's re-engage, that's different. If it allows like, okay, wait, we still like each other, let's re-engage. But it's when, because I have some people where, and it's a struggle, because some people, it's like they laugh when they get really uncomfortable. And I've had couples where like the spouse hates it. They get so angry when they're laughing. It's like, why are you laughing? I'm like, I have to reframe it and say, look, this is one where they're just really uncomfortable and they laugh. And we got to work on that. And we work on like, hey, I know you want to laugh, but don't. But that's different too, because it's not the same thing as humor. If someone says something really serious to you and you're like, like it's like, oh, that's not going to go over well.
Yeah.
But I guess I like, this is obviously I like humor a lot. It's one of my favorite topics, and I feel like I when I started reading that book, The Science of Funny, I was like, oh, dang it, I missed my opportunity in grad school, like to make my dissertation be about like the impact of humor in couples therapy. Instead, I did a phoned-in dissertation that was paid for. Somebody's smart.
Yes, but you walked out of a PhD with no debt, right? So,
well, almost. The PhD didn't give me quite the deal my master's did.
Almost no debt.
Master's, I made money. What's up? So, I mean, I guess we're already out of time because we're out of time, although I feel like I could talk about this forever. And as we talked, I actually made a note for my book. That's right.
You're not going to
note with us.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're just going to hold that one?
No, you got to buy the book.
Got to buy the book.
Oh, it was just what I already said, that like, actually the reframing is that I put down, humor can't be used as a defense. It should only be used as an offensive move. Like, how do I, not against somebody, but like, how do you and I
create room here?
Yeah. How do we create this space so that we can come at this in a different way? And then that's when humor is really beneficial. It allows a new approach at something. And sometimes I think that's the criticism of sarcasm, is it shuts down rather than opens up if it's done incorrectly. I don't think that's always the case. I think sarcasm sometimes is like misunderstood. But maybe I'm just justifying my jerky behavior. So there's that. And that's the take home, I guess. So
join us next time.
Maybe come back next time on the Manspace and see if Rob's a jerk again. Ta-da! I don't have a joke. Dang it, man. That's twice.